personal weapon.
Yeah.
So let's say you are reactivated, but you could choose any weapon of that you like, that you've been trained on.
Yeah,
Which one would you
I
choose?
could do an answer on that. And funnily enough, I think the 1980s was a fantastic period to soldier in. It was hard. It was miserable. It was full of laughs.
Yeah.
And the kit was shit. On a good day, the kit was shit.
The Americans you've served with, any other nationality that you came across?
But then you look at the Australians, and I was so impressed with the Australian SF. They've got an island. It's one of the biggest islands on the planet, and they can be far out of range of any helicopter resub, any helicopter Kazibak. And we would go on really extended trips, 1,000 miles into the bush. And three of us went for the training, for selection. Three of us were successful at selection.
Because
we were best mates.
And it was legs, and then can you name the other?
Yeah, a young Welshman named Shuggy.
Okay. And he sadly was killed as well.
Yeah. Three of us went to Gulf War, and I came back.
Is there a type of person that you see people line up or on parade on day one?
I've always had a philosophy on this. They are already there. What you've got to find out is who hasn't got what it takes.
Guys course,
yeah, PCA course.
Ah, brilliant. See if I can find you.
Where am I? There.
Oh, yeah. Wow.
That was P Company.
That's P Company, yeah. Brilliant. I've seen these pictures before. Does every
that
class get a... No, not this particular one.
Oh, that type.
The format in front of that plane.
Oh, I've got dozens of them.
So this is what all companies did this, right?
Yeah,
every
all
class
arms,
they go.
P Company, yeah.
And is this the start or once they've got through? Oh, that's the finish. Oh, brilliant.
Yeah, or more or less about 2 days out from the end.
Yeah.
So people who aren't going to... People who've already fallen off are not on it.
Oh, yeah, there you are. Yeah.
And then you've got one just in front of the army boxing centre.
Yeah. This is your combat survival instructors. I can remember. Yeah, no, it's cool. Yeah, next to standing next to legs. Yeah.
Always next to legs. And there was David on there, I think. David on there somewhere. He was killed with legs. He was my other 9 Squadron Oppo.
Ah. Where was it? Like Northern Ireland or?
No, he was killed in Iraq. They didn't come back from Iraq. Oh. 3 of us did selection together. 3 of us did selection beat up together.
The first Gulf War was also.
Yeah,
oh, wow.
Yeah, the Bravo 30 war.
Oh, so
what?
Legs
was in 20 and Shuggy was in
Oh, there were fatalities in Decoy as well. Oh, so you're saying the gym was a lockdown project?
Yeah, that's what it was. And I'm glad I did it. And it's all design. Space saving.
Yes.
You know.
And of course you are a granddad.
Oh, there's regular granddad. These are granddad. These are all granddad, and
you're in better shape than I am, Scouse. I'm certain of it.
What's that?
You're in better shape than I am. I'm 100%
you're only a boy,
certain.
aren't you? You're only a boy.
I've been focusing on, because I'm doing Paris 10 in 3 weeks, so I've been focusing on load bearing pace at pace.
I remember 9 Squadron. We used to do a regular thing. Well, I say regular every year.
Mm-hmm.
We'd do the South Downs Way.
Yeah.
We'd always do it the last day before Christmas leave, before Christmas stand down. And I used to think the lads loved it, but I got some feedback later on that they were a little bit more trepidatious, but I used to think it was a great way to finish.
Yeah.
We'd do the 10 miler and we'd wind up in the pub. And we had a little rule, we were all the DS, and we had a little rule that you had to finish with a student. You could take the best student, but we were looking for a record time over the South Downs Way to finish at the Royal.
As a squad, you mean?
No, as the front man.
Oh, I see.
And but he had to take a recruit with him, so you couldn't just tear off. You know, the recruit must be with you at the finish.
Yes.
And I remember us getting it right down to about 1 hour 25 for the 10
Wow,
miler.
10 miler.
And they just ran for 10
That's
miles
crazy.
carrying a 30-pound sack.
Like what was the standard you'd expect?
Right, okay. If I remember from the late 80s, P Company 10 miler finished in 145.
Oh wow! Yeah.
I think they didn't cut off till 150, but
Right.
I'm not 100% sure on that. 145
No, that sounds
definitely
right.
rings
Yeah,
a bell.
yeah.
You know, and that was a 30-pound pack, and a right.
Plus water, I guess, on top, right? Water,
Yeah. You know, whatever you drank or ate on the way, you didn't eat, but whatever you drank on the way, your pack weighed 30 at the end. You know?
Yeah, plus that, yeah. Scouse, thank you so much for inviting me back to the world. How are you, mate?
My pleasure. Yeah, fine. Absolutely good. Yeah,
awesome.
No
now, for those people watching, there's a video up here which was the first interview I did with Scouse, which was actually the first ever interview he did. Mate, it totally transformed my channel. I think I had 400 subscribers, and then it went overnight, it went to thousands. It's had, I think, over 110,000 views, 33,000 watch hours. That's at the time of recording this. What have the reactions been in terms of, have people recognised you at all?
No, not at all. If you remember, I was a little bit circumspect in my my appearance. I wore the hat. I always do wear the hat as a rule. I wore the shades. We did it in the bright sunlight, and I've not really been recognised. Been picked up in work a little bit, and that sometimes is interesting. You know, being a teacher and kids and that, and we have a CCF, a combined cadet force at the school, and that sort of thing interests them. You know,
yes,
strongly, yeah.
For a while we took it down. That is out of respect for, there was a bit of back and forth of the MOD.
Yeah.
Hopefully that's been smoothed over. But what that does mean is today we're not going to go into the specifics of any sort of operations. Obviously last time we did, whilst that operation was over 30 years ago, this time we're not even going to go into operations no matter how long ago they were.
Yeah.
There's lots of other stuff that I'd love to talk about. Now, for those people who don't know Nick, he spent, is it 36 years?
It's about 38. We were coming up 38. I joined in 83. I retired in 2020. So it comes around about 38 years.
38 years in the British Army, infantry, fighting units.
Engineers, SF.
Yeah, exactly. Most of that was spent in Special Forces.
Yeah.
And in fact, you went from an enlisted soldier all the way up to squadron commander. Am I right to say?
No, I got as far as the 2IC, second.
Oh, right, second command of the squadron. Yeah. Wow. And of course, late entry, so you became an officer as well.
Yeah.
You've worked a lot with American counterparts, your American counterparts?
Not a lot. Not a lot. I've come across them and on and off. Right through from Green Army to Special Forces. The Green Army, very interesting. The Special Forces, very interesting. That was entirely a resource factor. You know, the difference between the American anything is resource, and the difference is that we don't have the resource, and therefore we have to select a man, a capable man, who can slot into roles when trained, when given, you know, the right guidance, instruction, training, and so on. Then we can slot into a role. Whereas the US in particular have unit specific. You know, they almost have you know, a unit entirely specialised in kicking doors in. And that's fine, and you know, and it works very well, and it's very effective because they are total super specialists. The problem that they would have, and I'm not saying they do have, but the problem that they would have is when they're taken out of role, what background training do they have? Well, you take the British non-specialist, if you like, even specialist units like, you know, Special Forces, they will specialise in different things for periods, but generally speaking, they are generalists. You know, they're capable individuals who can, with the right training, do different roles. You know. Yes.
Well, if you look at, for instance, I think many of us, I'm quite impressed with, for instance, how in Ukraine Ukrainians are keeping up, and they are now specialists when it comes to drone warfare.
Yeah.
But it speaks to having that skill set to adapt and work your way through a problem, because they're not doing it with a lot of money. They've managed to become world leading now in terms of drone.
We're looking to learn from them.
Yeah. No, exactly. Just to get back to the American counterparts, the cliche is always the really bulked up Navy SEAL, whereas the British infantryman is more sort of carrying packs of along. And I've always thought it's supply lines where, because they're so well resourced, as an American, you may never be that far from a resupply.
Exactly right. Yeah, exactly right.
I think you told me in one of the conversations we've had, you were in the jungle with some American brethren from Special Forces.
Yeah, that's right.
Is that an anecdote you can share about?
Maybe, yeah. I mean, it was quite funny. We were dropped off and we did a short tab, and
this wasn't selection. This was jungle course.
This was jungle patrol thing.
And the Americans were there to learn from you, or
just to observe and see what we did, and they were going to take it away. They weren't on test. They weren't adding to, they weren't cross training with us, and that they were simply having a look at our course, seeing if they could take anything.
And how long was the evolution?
It was about 6 weeks in all.
Okay, wow.
And it was about 4 weeks under the canopy. Anyway, on one of these occasions, we had an American lad in, great fella, and we got to a point where we stopped, and he kind of sat down and he said, "Right, that'll do then." And we sort of said, "Well, we're going." He said, "What about the transport?" We said, "Well, you're wearing the transport," And but having said that, they were good guys, strong.
Yeah. Awesome. Are there any particular lessons there that you took from your jungle?
Navigating is the problem.
Right.
I suppose it's different now. I suppose with GPS makes jungle navigation 1,000 times better.
But I think there still need to be able to navigate, because you can't always count on
obviously,
GPS.
But without practice, it's almost dead reckoning. The maps that we had certainly were less than trustworthy.
Yeah.
Sometimes they were okay, and sometimes they were less than trustworthy. Sometimes you would feel that the ground that you were on was not really related on the maps. How they did them, I don't know how they made those maps, because they certainly didn't get Ordnance Survey out there with theodolites and so I think they were fairly estimates anyway. But yeah, navigation was hard.
Because of course, for you, I can imagine you haven't got any points of. It's not like in Wales where you go, that's that peak.
You can literally.
There's a river.
The only things you have got is you've got the higher ground. If you can look up to the higher ground, then you can see a ridge line, because suddenly it becomes slightly lighter. But that's predominantly in primary jungle, which is where which is effectively a rainforest. And once you've got secondary jungle, you've got almost no navigation. You're literally dead reckoning.
So you're counting steps at that point.
Counting steps. You know your start point. You know your sort of timing if you're doing a regular pace. So you can say, well, okay, we're moving 4 minutes, so we've done 50 meters or whatever it is. Secondary jungle is a complete nightmare. My days in the jungle were before GPS, and I would imagine it's a bit better now.
Yeah. We touched briefly on the Americans you've served with. Any other nationality that you came across?
Could talk about that. Yeah, just what you were saying is the Americans never far from resource, never far from a resupply. 10 minutes away from a heli exfil or Kazivac. But then you look at the Australians, and I was so impressed with the Australian SF. They've got an island, the biggest island on the planet. I might be wrong, but it's one of the biggest islands on the planet, and they can be far out of range of any helicopter resup, any helicopter Kazivac. They have to be so self-reliant, so self-sufficient. Their patrol medics can be dealing with a massive trauma on a basic exercise where the nearest exfil is 24 hours away. So they've got to keep a lad stabilised, living and just their professionalism was absolutely phenomenal. And we would go on really extended trips, 1,000 miles into the bush. And how do you get out of that? You are literally
in Australia. Oh wow, you actually went to Australia.
Working with the Aussies, things like that. Yeah.
Oh, fantastic! How long did you work with them? How long?
Well, I did a couple of trips to Australia. I did a month there where we were working on the coast on the boats. We did a little bit of desert work, and I did another trip where I was very fortunate to get on what was a little bit of a glad handing trip. Really, they were showing us how their special forces work. And the way it worked, it was an excellent setup. They gave us an aircrew and they gave us an aeroplane, and they flew us all over Australia. And we would touch down with one of the units that was in the north. We would then work with them. Then, when I say work with them, they would show us their stuff. We would shake their hands. They would put on the barbecue. Everybody would get drunk, and we'd have a good time. Then we'd fly out to, from the north down to the south to Perth or across to Sydney or something like this. And we'd be flying for 8-9 hours a day, touching down, having a barbecue, maybe the next couple of days doing a little bit of soldiering or watching their stuff, and then flying somewhere else. And in the time we were out there, I think it was 5 weeks or something we were out there, we effectively flew about 3 times around the world. And what was really quite funny, and they were very hospitable. They looked after us and they showed us things that were really eye-watering. We went up in the north and we were watching the whales from the aircraft, and that we were sitting on the tailgates, flying over, and there's these whales and humpback whales and stuff. Flew around the Ayers Rock, is it in the centre of? Is it Bears Rock or Ayers Rock? Ayers Rock, oh, yeah. In the centre of near Alice Springs. Went to Alice Springs. Barbecues and the indigenous people put shows on for us. That absolutely
fantastic.
Yeah, good trip.
I've always wondered, do you then bring your own weapon systems for training over there, or do you work with whatever they've got? You work with what they've got.
When I've gone overseas, invariably, it depends. It depends.
If it's a deployment, obviously,
in that case, we use the Australian Steyr.
Really? The Steyr?
When we went, it's European, isn't it? But the Australians were using it at the time. Never particularly liked it. Look, bloody awful looking weapon. And then when we were in Africa,
the magazine?
It was similar to an SA-80
you've got the
in so much you've got a rear mounted. But then it's completely. It looks like something off Star Wars or something. Completely encased in polymer.
I think nowadays they probably use the AR-15 or M16 platform. I don't know. Maybe they still
use a Colt variant. I think most of the Western world does something. The Western world. Isn't it?
And of course, the moment you went into SF, you would have mainly been working on that platform, weapons platform. I guess the C7 or the M16.
The M16 was in when I was in.
There was 3 of you in 9 Squadron who trained up for selection, went through selection together, got badged. First Gulf War breaks out. After that, you're the only one left. Yeah. Because it was legs.
We were best mates.
And it was legs. And then can you name the other?
Yeah, a young Welshman named Shuggy.
Okay. And he sadly was killed as well.
So I came back, and 3 of us went. 3 of us went for the training. For selection, 3 of us were successful at selection. 3 of us went to Gulf War, and I came back.
In terms of, I would imagine that is a real blow. And if we look at
to them especially,
But so in terms of, do you have any sort of mental health challenges or any tips on that area that you could talk
to
about?
some degree, although nobody had ever heard about them in those days. So, I won't profess that it was bad, but I was changed for 6 months. My marriage became strained. We worked through it, and we're still together. Temper, irritability, things that I just thought I was a dick, and why were you behaving like that? But maybe these were mental health issues that were just. I wouldn't say I ever became mentally unwell in that respect. No PTSD or anything like that. But, you know, I was changed for a while. Definitely, you know, my temper changed, my personality probably changed for a while, and then, you know, got back on track and got well again, got healthy, and not that I ever, because you didn't know. You know, if someone had said, well, what you've been through might have an effect on your mental health. Oh yeah, it might do, yeah. Oh yes, it all adds up. But nobody said that, you know what I mean? No. I just came home from the Gulf War and was a dick for, you know, however long it was, and then sort of mellowed and got things back on track. And
yes. Yeah. These days, is there anything in particular you think speak to the mental side of things?
I suppose it is, you know, take a step back mentally, take a step back, don't be, you know, just I suppose it's an aging thing, and I suppose a lot of guys who are watching this who are, you know, similar ages are starting to get this, and you know, far be it from me to give them advice, but take a step back. You know, do you really need to be that involved in, you know, stress, in things that are, you know, you got life's tricky to navigate, but, you know, just be cool.
Yeah. No, I don't think it's great advice, actually.
Try to be cool wherever possible, and guys, you know, try not to moan. You know, people are terrible moaners, and once they get some feedback, positive feedback for their moaning, they moan more, and all of a sudden everything becomes shit, and, you know.
Or they get self-pity, and then they, you're a victim of this or that, and then it just gets worse.
And it's somebody else's fault and all that. Don't moan and be cool. I suppose that'd be my philosophy.
We're in a lovely garden, and there is this. Somebody once told me this, where if you keep watering the bushes that you don't want, so the weeds, they're just going to grow. You shouldn't keep nurturing them and sort of keep dwelling on, looking at them, and there it is, and let's spend time.
This is terrible. That's gone up, and you know.
This is actually a nice bridge to get into British military training and selections courses, because you've taken part in some of the toughest training and selections available in the British military. Obviously, for 9th Squadron, you went to your airborne soldiering courses with P Company, both as a participant, and then you were involved in training the students. So also sort of on the selecting side. When it went to UKSF selection, you came back for a second attempt at the jungle. You actually, for the viewers, how many Special Forces selection courses have you been involved in?
Administered or taken part in?
Take a part in two. Sure, I guess.
You mean from the sort of the 10th Lance Jack who tells you the next RV? Right, I suppose I did 6 years, I would say. 3 cycles of 2 years. So at every stage, sort of as the 10th Lance Corporal who tells you the next RV, to the training team member of staff, to the sort of chief instructor.
That's really, so that gives you a unique 360-degree view. And is there a type of person that, for instance, the paras look for, and then step 2 that Special Forces look for?
I've always had a philosophy on this, and I might be right, I might be wrong. Let's suppose a new course is starting up, and this new course is simply to join the British Army in an elite infantry unit like the paras. Okay, you will get, say, I don't know, 80 blokes turn up and stand on the square with their suitcases on day one. Depending, so what I don't know what the pass rate would be. If the pass rate was 20%, you'd probably find there's 30 guys in that who've definitely got what it takes. They are already there. What you've got to find out is who hasn't got what it takes. And when you've whittled away all the people that haven't got what it takes, you've got the people who have, and then you will lose 10 out of those 30 for bad luck, for injury, or they'll be back squadded, or they'll leave, or they'll injure themselves, and so they're out of luck. And that's pretty much how I think the British Army works, is that you turn up, you are already able you are already the man for
if you're
the
one of
unit.
those people that pass, yeah.
The trick is that they have to find out who's not, and those who are not necessarily not for the reasons you might think. They're not for lots of reasons. I remember as a young recruit, there was a lad there. He was 6'4". He was a heavyweight boxer, and we'd been there about 6 weeks. And I came into the toilets one time, and he was crying in the cubicle. He was 6'4". I mean, if you imagine me at a similar age was about 11 stone, 11.5 stone. He was about 18 stone. He was a monster of a man. He'd never taken any abuse off anyone. Well, all of a sudden, he was in a situation which was so alien to him. Then he left, and I'm sure he had a very, very happy life after it.
Yes.
But he was not, even though he may have the physical attributes that you would say, yeah, we'll have him. Once it came to actually finding that you've got exactly what we're looking for,
yes,
what they were looking for.
When you then look at Special Forces, their recruits have already passed some arduous courses, no matter where they're from, whatever regiment they're from, they've gone through basic soldiering. What then are these extra elements that you then look for over and above?
It's uptake and assimilation. So, given the lesson, acting on the lesson and doing it to a good standard. Not necessarily a superb standard or anything like that, but you're looking for the capacity to imbibe information when you're tired, when you're stressed, and to be able to act on it.
You see people line up on parade on day one, and you're not able to tell.
I would say no. I would say the people are there.
Yeah.
But the whole point of running a 3 month, 6 month, 6 week selection course is because you can't know just by interviewing them. No. And in fact, I've done lots and lots of interviews toward prospective SF soldiers, and some of the ones that you think are the most likely just don't do it. Don't put the story together. So
it really is the only way to find out, isn't it?
It absolutely is.
And does that explain when you read that people are just a number in the beginning because they genuinely don't know whether you are or are not? No. So point into
the actual fact, if you come with the baggage that the staff know about, then that's not a good thing either way. It's not right. It's not something you want to be measuring the guy from how he performs. Not how somebody said he performs, or you knew him in an old unit and you were best mates and that kind of thing. You're far better off literally applying the system and seeing if the system works. The problem is that I've known some very, very good lads who never passed ever, and they just had bad luck after bad luck.
Right.
I would still say that they were the right people for the job. They were, they would measure up in any of the sort of things that we'd set against them. But if they're tapping over the Brecon Beacons at 4k an hour in the dark with £60 a kit on the back, and the leg goes down a rabbit hole, and they twist their knee, and that's the end of selection. And I know people who have repeatedly done that. They've gone off for selection after selection and come back, bounced off, I twisted my knee this time, it hit me back that time. Is that, I've always said, to a certain degree, you make your own luck. Now, are there examples of luck that you just couldn't avoid bad luck? But equally, and it is a shame when you know in your heart of hearts that because you've seen this guy's got what the amount of guys who, I won't mention the name, but you know the guy, and he went down on 4 selections before he was successful, and he had everything it took, but for 3 selections he was unlucky. On his 4th one, he finally passed.
Fantastic. Well, that shows an incredible fortitude anyway to keep coming.
But we as DS and that, we knew that we were sending the right guy down. Right. I think because there was always certainly in the old days you couldn't do 4 selections, they wouldn't let you. But these were injuries. These weren't failures. These were the guy twist his knee. So I think you've got a lot more leeway, especially if the med officer says that you know, this and the guy can't carry on, but he's a good guy. So I know that we did have to fight for some guys and say, you know, you really should have another look at this guy, you know, rather than saying, no, you've done 2 selections, you're not
interesting.
You know, this guy, you want to have a look at him because he's measured up in every test we've set on him. The only thing he hasn't done is got past that rabbit hole with him.
And then the ultimate decision, I would say, is with an officer who's
it's a CO's pass.
Got it.
And then, you know, and that will be, you know, it might be something you disagree with, you know. See it more with the officers than the soldiers. You don't really you get a CO's pass perhaps in the infantry and in the engineers and things like that, where individual can be brought up to speed more easily, say, than somebody who perhaps lacks the qualities, and then you're trying to train someone who lacks the qualities to be better than the raw material you've got, sort of thing.
No, that's
very much
interesting.
In the infantry, the whole is bigger than the sum of the parts, sort of thing, you know.
Yes.
Yeah.
Talking about resilience, you've been open also in the first interview that you did the jungle twice. Mm-hmm. Now, how did you sort of build yourself up, and did you have any doubts on when you came off the first time, or whether you were going to go back into
I don't know. If I was advising someone shortly after I was successful in the jungle, I would say get yourself on the patrols course.
Right. Yeah.
You know, I can make excuses, and I'm happy to do for why I wasn't successful on the first jungle course. And my reasons were that as 9 Squad in the Royal Engineers and as a pre-para training staff, I was in the gym. Yeah. 24/7 sort of thing. You know, I was when I say the gym, I mean, you know, we were out on the hills tabbing, or now what I would have loved to have done, and I'm sure that I would have walked the jungle course that had I have done a recent patrols course, because all as the jungle selection is a jungle patrols course. It just teaches you to patrol in the jungle, by that, you know, to all the different skills that are involved in it. So when I did selection first time and I did the jungle, I was doing the jungle patrols course. So when I did selection the second time, so long as I could pass the hills all over again, I was just reliving that jungle. Now I'd done it once, so I was, you know, I was fine. And so how did I prepare for passing selection? I did the jungle course on selection, and and that was gold, because, you know, I came up short on the first one. I put that down to you know, not really having the basic patrol skills that I needed just to soldier at that level. I would say, well, I won't even go into that, but you know, I acquitted myself sufficiently well as a Royal Engineer for them to say, "Oh, all you got to do, mate, is
get your patrol skills up." Yeah. Interesting. Various soldiering questions, and this is also from comments I've read from the original videos. You mentioned the Chinese Parliament concept, where on one of your missions where a decision needs to be made, and you refer to this Chinese Parliament concept. How does that concept work?
Okay, well, you know,
because it's not a democracy, is it, at the army?
It's not a democracy, no. But I suppose that where do I put it? The more special forces type ethos you have. I mean, if you look at the 4 tenets of the regiment and that, it's the value on the opinion of the people in the group who, at the end of the day, are going to have to make this thing work.
Yes.
And then you ask them what they think, and it's basically as simple as that. We sit down, we say, "This is the problem, lads. Anyone know anything about it? Oh, I might know something. I worked on something like this a while ago. Well, no, I've got a clue. Right, well, what we're being asked to do is this. Anyone got any thoughts on it? It seems to me like it's madness, or, it seems to me like, there's only one way to do this, and that's to go down here. But then the enemy might know that there's only one way to do this, so we've got to come up with something else. Right? So I would say it's you get your team, and you give them some ownership of the problem. Mm-hmm. and therefore they will have ownership of the solution.
Yes.
And at the end of the day, there might be like two fallout plans. Well, we've got to do it this way, or we've got to do it that way. And some of the guys will be going, see what you do, that's much better way. And others will be going, no. And at the end of it, then the boss has to say, well, I'm in charge.
Yeah.
That's what we're doing.
Doing that way. Yeah.
And even those guys who totally supported that one, who might think that's a much better plan. At least they've been heard. They have some ownership.
Yes.
So that's a military Chinese parliament. I would imagine that you'd be a fool that if you run an organisation that you don't have something that is pretty similar, where you bring in your stakeholders and you bring in the people who have got to make this happen. Whether it's you're working in a card factory in Birmingham or you're 250 kilometres behind enemy lines, and you sit down and you say, this is what we've got to achieve. Anyone got any ideas? Anyone got any good ideas? Because businesses and that, they have like ideas boxes and things like that, which okay, is not quite a Chinese parliament, but that's what a Chinese parliament is, and I do them all the time. They are the best system. I will do a Chinese parliament where my video kit doesn't work in front of a class of 30 kids and say, right, fellas, who knows something about this?
Oh, that's fantastic.
And they go on, and there's always a volunteer, and you say, what do you know? And can you fix this? Are you sure you can fix it? Let's go.
That is fantastic. That's something we can all learn from.
I do not imagine there's any other way of doing it, And I give a little bit of advice to the lads I work with now. And I say, if you want to get it on in life, surround yourself by people who know what they're doing.
Yes. Yeah. This was one of the things. I did a course in the Netherlands, and one of the feedbacks I got was you need to get better at asking for help. Because they said, look around you. Because I was doing something, and he goes, are you going to finish this in time? I go, well, I'm not sure. He goes, look around you. Why would you ask anyone to help?
I would say that probably the way I've looked at anything like that is I'm well aware of my weaknesses, if you like. And but what I'm good at is picking up other people's strengths and distilling them down and saying, right, here's my plan. And it's all from guys who I consider, subject matter experts or whatever, then you've come up with them. To some degree, that I would say that's the only way you can do this.
Yeah, 100%.
Some people are automatons and they think they've got it right, and they think their way or the highway, and I look at that and I just think that's foolish.
I think so too. Yeah. Surround yourself with yes men. That doesn't end well. Anyway, we'll stay out of politics. But,
with capable people who know their subject and use them to make you can get their expertise and come up with your plan. Because they're going to run that side of it. He's going to run that side of it. He's good at that. We're all going to work together. At times I'll coordinate it, and I'll look good because it'll be my plan. But actually, it's because none of it was my plan. It was just I coordinated it.
Yeah, fantastic. Speaking of viewer questions, I got one this morning actually, and it's from Daniel Withington, and he is about your teaching, and he said, how did you, so he understands from the last video you were a chemistry teacher.
Yeah.
How did that sort of come about? How did you get your qualifications for that?
Yeah, I used the military. I used education qualification.
Credits?
I used education credits and just manipulated my life. Joined the reserves on leaving the regs, and basically wasn't too easy. Didn't have any qualifications when I came out of school because I was everything was all about the army, and that's a slightly different story. And it was going back, so it was things like access courses, things like university, 5 years university with a chemistry degree, a teaching degree, and all sort of supported by reserve military activity.
Right. So they were paying some of your bills, and then
exactly right.
Yeah. Interesting. Yeah. So you said you got a chemistry university degree then, as well as your teaching, as well as your teaching qualification.
You get the BSc first, and then you get a PGCE, which is a postgraduate certificate education, and then you're effectively qualified to teach.
Incredible. What did you find the most challenging of that, of those years in qualifying?
You know, I mean, I didn't go back to education till pretty late. Having done, you know, at that point, I think about 10 years in the military, discipline, my work ethic was phenomenal. I mean, don't like to big time, but in my second year at uni, I won a scholarship for chemistry, and it was a SmithKline Beecham, and it was effectively a best student for the second year students. Yeah, but that wasn't because I was dead smart or anything. That was because I was working with 20-year-old students who wanted to drink beer, go with girls, and I wanted to get a first-class degree, you know, in chemistry, and that's all, you know, and it was the same as doing selection. You know, I couldn't function unless I got that degree. I would not be able to go on, you know.
Fantastic.
I mean, and going back to, in order to, when you go back on your second selection course, you know, basically your career, I joined the army to go on the SAS. Your career comes to a point where you go on selection. You're then unsuccessful. So, is my career over? Or am I going to have to pass this? So it's almost like you've got to really want it.
Yeah.
You know, there's got to be something in you that wants it more than anything else. You know, wants it more than failure. Wants it more than anything else you can offer. And I think that's the bit that, you know, and it does go back to the guy who is stood on the square at the beginning. The guy's going to pass, he's got to be capable.
Yes.
But then he's got to want it. You know, because if he doesn't want it, he won't.
Yes.
He won't apply himself. And it was the same in the degree. It was you've got to want it. You know.
Yes.
And I would walk in. I would be at the front of the lecture theatre. I would be on time with my dictaphone, with my flask. And if there was too much noise behind me, I would stand up and tell those students to shut the fuck up. And they did.
Yeah. Even though. They would not know your background.
They would not know anything.
No.
Just slightly older.
They probably didn't know. Yeah. I mean,
he wasn't taking any shit because you know he was paying for this fucking education, and he wasn't having them talk the way through it. You know.
Yeah. In terms of just before over the 36 years that you've served from the end of the Cold War, Northern Ireland. Oh, did you go to Northern Ireland at all? Or did you serve in Northern Ireland? Or before, right back? Oh, you can't talk about it.
Yeah,
I won't talk about it. So from the end of the Cold War through Gulf War I, there were various conflicts going on, global war terror. And without going into the details of those operations, how have you seen the soldier change? We talked about the fitness bit earlier, but in other aspects, how has the staff
very much so.
changed?
Okay, now I couldn't tell you. You know, I came out of the Green Army, or left the Green Army for the SF a long time ago, 89, I think I was finally past selection. Before that, you know, the soldier was robust, physically fit. Don't know what's, you know, I see society, and society is changing. I see society in the place I work. I see young men changing, and I suppose like all generations, I'm looking at them and thinking, you know, they haven't got what we had. They haven't got that work ethic, whatever it was. But because I left the Green Army, so I don't know what the Green Army's like now. It might be frightening, you know, with the wokeness and the sensitivity of society as it is now, you know, super sensitive society that somebody only has to say something and people are dancing around shouting and screaming that you know. So I don't know what the young soldier is like anymore, and I couldn't give a picture, but certainly young soldiers coming through in the SF are just becoming far more tech savvy, far more, you know, they're just able to use the equipment, you know, computers, AI.
More tech savvy.
Yeah, very much more tech savvy, more fitness savvy. But certainly the SF, the young SF lads are an athlete.
Right.
They're not. They're not the ordinary guy that is. The ordinary soldier. For instance, people want to come join various units and serve some time in the army, but the guys who are doing SF selection, they're tech savvy, they're intelligent, and they're athletes. Really high sort of level.
That's interesting. You've served in lots of ranks, starting. Well, you were in the Merchant Navy for starters. Then as an enlisted soldier, all the way up to late entry officer. Which promotion was the biggest change for you? Yeah.
I love being a corporal in the Green Army, and I love being a corporal in the SF. Sergeant, staff sergeant, less so. You be management, and But then again, it's not a simple. It's not a simple question. I mean, I'm sure there are simple answers, but it's not when you're a Tom, a Lance Jack, a corporal, and then you're a section commander, and then you might be a troop sergeant. So one thing is you're changing, your responsibilities are changing, your roles are changing, so it's not like you couldn't. You could put me back being a corporal. I'd enjoy a massive part of it, but I couldn't do it.
Oh, right.
It changed. Physically probably couldn't do it. Intellectually, it would be, so what I mean is you progress through the rank that reflects who you are. Yeah. Not the rank you like do. I remember a lot of guys in the army who, once they passed being a corporal, would have nothing but lament. They best job I ever had, being a corporal and all that. Yeah. Because sergeant is different. It's starting to be a middle management role. It's a managerial role, and then warrant officers and so on. They're completely J1 managerial roles. Yes. And then you're into. I was never a troop commander because I was an LE. Young 25, 26-year-old troop commander who then goes on to be a squadron commander or whatever. You can only soldier at a rank that reflects who you are. Yes. So you can't be a 40-year-old corporal. I'm not saying it's not possible, but being a corporal at 40, you wouldn't have the right mentality for it. Right. That's interesting. Yeah, that makes sense.
And then moving on to LE, you're now going to Sandhurst, and so how was that?
It was a
memorable experience.
It was a late entry officers course, and it's a 4-week course that for us was condensed into 2 weeks. Brilliant course, absolutely loved it. History, thinking skills, etiquette skills. They teach you etiquette that officers are taught, that soldiers are not taught. That suddenly makes the penny drop. Of course, that's why we do things like that. And so it was a real education. It was absolutely
really interesting. And you've seen it from all sides. Unlike direct entry officers, you've got such a
experience. They get taught that right from the word go. I don't think it's any different. A young soldier, a young recruit in the Green Army who's going to be, aspiring to be a private is not going to be taught any of these things, and so much not just the Sandhurst, but aspects of the army that teach you that you are maybe only a small tooth on a cog, but you think of any cog where that tooth's not working, you've got a problem machine. So you have to live up to your end of the job as well as you possibly can. Yeah, and that's the same in life, in any organisation. It's not what happens, but it should be. If an organisation's got to work well, it's, for example, Sergeant Major will come along to me and he say, Corporal Elliott, Colonel's coming this afternoon. I want this parade square. gleaming. Can you take your pre-para recruits and make sure that this square has not got a fag book, not got a bus ticket, not got a single piece of paper anywhere on it? So I will say, oh, right, lads, not much of a job, but it's a job we're going to do fucking well.
Yeah.
So we'll get an extended line, and some people won't be that interested, and we'll march all the way across, and then I'll have a look, and I'll see there's a fag book been missed or whatever. So I've got to take them back, and I'll shout and scream and stuff like this. And it's just understanding that menial task still has to be done as well as you can possibly do it.
Yeah.
And that enables everybody else's tasks. That means that the sergeant major can walk the colonel across the square, confident that his lads have done their job. Yeah. And that colonel's not going to stop and see a load of shit on his parade square. And it's just an understanding of where your particular little cog fits into the machine.
Yes.
And that's a process of education in the army. And it's done by starting off as a senior Tom, and then find yourself as a lance jack and a full screw and a sergeant, a staff sergeant, and so on. And you just suddenly become more aware of how everybody's part of the puzzle needs to work.
Yes, yeah, really interesting. You've used everything from 1980s smocks to modern kit.
Yeah.
Any sort of favourites or kit that is non-negotiable for you?
Kit is getting better and better.
Right.
There's no two ways about it. If you see some pictures of me in my putties and DMS boots with an SLR, and again, it's a sad fact in some ways that we look back, and I think the 1980s was a fantastic period to soldier in. It was hard. It was miserable. It was full of laughs. Yeah. And the kit was shit. On a good day, the kit was shit. Kit's getting better and better. I remember getting boiling the bag rations for the first time. Now I think they're superseded now, but we in the old days we used to get cardboard boxes with tins and paper bags and all kinds, and it was adequate. It was definitely adequate. And then all of a sudden we got these things where you just boil some hot water and you dropped in these amazing sort of casseroles and things into it. And we were looking, have we died and gone to heaven? This is just too good to be true. And then I remember being stood in the line to go issue our Gore-Tex, and we got some Gore-Tex. This 88, even before, I think it might have been 85, and oh, this looks good. And then there was an old full screw, not particularly successful full corporal, and he says, you fucking don't know you're born, you fucking, you wet wellies, and all that. And he was going on about, what he was lamenting was that we were going soft because we were getting Gore-Tex. Come on. Yeah. Gore-Tex was a game changer. I remember that very exercise we were doing, a mine clearance, and we're crawling across this field, and the field is waterlogged, and we're in these brand new heavy duty as the early Gore-Tex was. It was fantastic, but it was too heavy, and we were bone dry. These things were breathable, and yet they wouldn't let water into your elbows. Prior to that, what we used to call the crisp packet, which were these effectively just rubber sheets, the rubber sheet clothing, and as soon as you moved, condensation built up inside. You were soaked inside, soaked outside. So the kit is better and better. So I would say get the latest kit.
Get the latest.
I know that I soldiered for years on my 58 pattern webbing. I went into the Gulf with wearing 58 pattern webbing because I kind of sucked into the psychology that the old stuff was the best. But gradually, as you see the better kit coming through, you got to scratch your head and say, "Come on, fella, keep up." There's so much science and technology and that going into kit and boots and things like that. We started with DMS. DMS caused foot rot in the Falklands. Non-negotiables is waterproofs, I suppose.
Yeah, waterproof.
Because the great thing about a waterproof is even if it's not keeping you dry, and they never do, You know, I mean, you only have to have the tiniest part of your collar exposed or whatever, and it'll just wick. The water will just keep, by osmosis, will just keep taking the water, and you will be soaking.
Yeah.
But they're fantastic lid-proofs, and they're almost like wearing a wetsuit. So, you know, it's not a problem that a waterproof doesn't keep you dry, but it does keep the water in there, you know, and that heats up, and it's like a wetsuit, I suppose.
Yeah.
I know Gore-Tex is breathable and all that, but I've never found any that could breathe fast enough as far as I'm saying.
Yeah, it's a trade-off. Like if you have, like I have Gore-Tex boots and I have non-Gore-Tex boots, because the Gore-Tex boots take a lot longer to dry.
Exactly right.
Whereas the non-Gore-Tex, and they're surprisingly good now. They're a pair of Akkus, and they're lighter as well. And I find myself using them throughout the seasons because they're so nice, and they're actually not too bad. And your feet are going to get wet anyway.
You think they're more winter?
No, for winter, there are winter boots that I use as well, but it's just... It's more, if they're going to get wet anyway, at least they dry quickly.
Yeah.
As the Gore-Tex get wet on the inside, you're sloshing around for hours. Anyway, we get off track. In terms of personal weapon, so let's say you are reactivated, right? Because the age of reserves are going up and up, but you could choose any weapon of that you like, that you've been trained on.
Okay. I could do an answer on that. And, you know, funnily, it goes back, and it was me in the Gulf. I would take a Minimi.
Minimi? Oh, cool.
The simple reason. Why would you take an assault rifle when you could take a machine gun?
Yeah.
You know, now, what the lads did in the Gulf is they used these UGLs, underslung grenade launchers, which would fire a 40mm fairly inaccurately and fairly ineffectively, and everybody seemed to want this grenade tube on the bottom of the M16. And even then, I took a Minimi, and you could take a Minimi with belt, so you could sustain fire, or you could take a Minimi with magazine, so you had 30 rounds of instant machine gun paced firepower.
Yeah. And in the desert, I mean, you've got lots of opportunity to see where your shots are going, and
you know, and the Minimi is heavy but short. You know, it's as almost as manoeuvrable as an M16 or a C8 or whatever.
Interesting. That wasn't the answer I was expecting, but cool. Someone going onto the hills on a recce on their own, what should be in their backpack as a minimum?
Yeah. I mean, you know, this is not really a military thing. I mean, whenever you do anything like that in the military, you know, you would have a checklist.
Right.
Well, I mean, totally two things. Communication. Okay, so you've got to have communication and even a backup communication. Then you've got to have some kind of waterproof. You've got to let people know where you are, where you're going, when you're expected back. And these are just the basic common sense things that everybody sort of knows. And some other form of signal. So if you can get mini flares or something like this. If you're going if you're going on a short, it's a day recce. You're out in the morning, you're back in the evening. Then you only need a day sack.
Yeah.
And a bivvy bag, obviously, sort of, you break a leg and you need shelter. While you're waiting for pickup, you're in your bivvy bag and you're out the wind and so on. A little bit of food, preferably high energy. What else would you say? Obviously, navigation kit. You've got a compass and a spare compass. You know.
Oh,
always spare compass in your bag. Check that it hasn't, the oil hasn't leaked or something. And but generally speaking, you never take it out, but it's always there. If you've lost your compass or you've lost your GPS these days, isn't it? It's on your phone. You may not have phone coverage in the mountains.
Absolutely, people don't know how to interpret it because I was walking with Mark Angel, if he's watching, he'll remember this. We came across two girls, and they thought they were walking next to a reservoir, and it was the wrong one. So it was really weird. So they're saying, yeah, we're a bit lost because there's Beacon's Reservoir, whatever they said, and we go, that's Ponsill, or something like that. You are completely looking at the wrong. It was a map. And then I thought, haven't you got a phone? And this is the thing: if you're not experienced, even people with a phone and the map, can get 180 degrees.
And that's the other thing. If you're going for a recce on your own, then you need to be, you need to have done recce's with people.
Yeah, exactly.
You need to have practiced what a recce's about and come across certain situations where you've got to make decisions and things like this. So it's all experience. If you ask me, what's the advice to the guy who's going to do recce on his own and he's never been on the hills? Just don't do
don't do it. Yeah. No, that's a very good point. Don't do it on your own, because anyone who's even thinking about doing it on his own, I would imagine is an experienced hill walker and would know exactly what to bring. That's a good point.
Exactly.
We're switching to after service. You went from serving at the tip of the spear, right, to a grammar school classroom teaching teenagers. Massive gear shift. Any crossover in the psychology of managing a section or a squadron and managing a classroom full of teenagers?
For any of you guys who are ex-military looking for something maybe to do for the next part of your career, I think teaching is an absolute. I love it. It's the same without the killing.
Oh, really?
Yeah. There's loads of crack and thump. So anyone who's sat in the butts and listened to the crack and thump of the round, or been on a live fire situation. There's plenty of crack and thump. You don't know who shot it. You don't know where it's come from, but it's out there. No, I'm being frivolous and being trivial, but no, it's absolutely running 30, 15-year-old lads is the same as the army. You've got a few differences that you haven't got creeds, regulations. You will break them if you shout. But you've something you learn on every junior NCO cadre in the British Army is the way to approach your subordinates is firm, fair, and friendly, and I live by that.
Yeah.
Also, you got also imagine that I see teachers who get a little bit worked up by, say, a bit of bad behaviour or whatever from the kids. How fucking serious is he? The kid's 15. He's, he's, as long as he hasn't knifed someone or he hasn't, but low level bad behaviour is just what 15-year-olds will try. So yeah, I think it's great. Absolutely love it.
Fantastic. Well, that's a really positive turn on it. What is the crossover of, in terms of, when you have objectives like studying for a title or studying in front of a classroom?
Oh, it's the same. You take a combat estimate, and if you're planning to get something done by the end of the day, or you're planning to get something done by the end of the lesson or whatever, you combat estimate everything. So you look at the situation, you look at your assets, you look at your resources, you look at your enemy, very often the kids, or the management, or time itself may be your enemy. And you just combat estimate everything that you do, if that you're looking to achieve your mission. My lads in work, they get missions every day. Right, fellas, our mission is to get this done. And this is how we're going to achieve it. Anyone got anything on that? What about if I need to go to the toilet, or
Yeah.
And, so life is the military is a phenomenal resource for your education. It will, maybe I don't know. It's just such, You get a school trip where they're taking some kids to visit a museum in Manchester. The planning, the logistics, the everything, the checks, it's all exactly the same. The military is the best education. I speak to the kids in school, and the kids in school, I teach chemistry, and the kids in school, in a year's time, in a month's time, will not remember the chemistry I teach them, but they will remember lots of things that I've taught them.
Yeah.
And it won't be chemistry.
No.
It'll be, you are how you present. That's something, that's one of my pet phrases. So the way you look, the way your work is, the way that is, the way you hand me something in, that is who you are.
Yeah.
And it's as simple as that. And if you want that to go through with you in life, then who you are should be reflected in everything you do. And little lessons like that. And I have the luxury of being able to go into a classroom and just download on kids in that respect.
Mm-hmm.
Things that I will give them to improve their life.
Yeah.
Guy once said to me in the Gulf War, he said, someone comes to you with an opportunity to improve your lot or your life, and you don't take that opportunity, you're a fool.
Yeah.
Now I say to the transfers, kids, education is one of your best opportunities. You don't take that opportunity, who are you?
Yeah. Well, there's a lot to think about there. That's very true. Right, guys, if you've enjoyed that, please like and subscribe. Okay, this is a hobby channel. There's no super thanks. There's no paid memberships. All I ask is that you, if you have enjoyed it, that you do like and subscribe. YouTube pays a bit towards that, which helps me towards equipment and other sort of associated costs. So I keep having conversations like this. And thanks very much for that, Nick. And I always sign off in the same way. See you in the hills.